What's up, y'all? Today on the podcast, we have Gabe Serrano. He's a good friend of mine. He actually ran track at Alabama. He's got all the accolades. He's a three-time NCAA Division I All-American, two-time SEC medalist, two-time SEC Community Service Team, and now he's actually pursuing fighting. We train together at Next Generation MMA. He's got a couple fights under his belt pursuing that. Great guy overall, but most importantly, the thing that he's committed to chasing the most, admittedly, himself is Christ. And I highly respect that. We relate on that. That's part of how we've become such good friends. I really think everybody's going to enjoy this pod. Check it out.
Looking like a card of paparazzi. Two phones in my pocket talking. Yeah, I got it. Black card in my wallet. If I want it, then I cop. Shotgun, right shot it. I don't need nobody.
Like the first thing we establish is just whether we're drinking liquor or we're drinking caffeine. So today's caffeine, and so that means he doesn't have to take a shot if he doesn't get enough trivia right. He's all good. You know, he's just chilling on his coffee over there, and I got mine as well. So
I kind of drank mine already, so
hey, you know what? Good. So we don't have to worry about it kicking in. I've only saved a little bit of mine, so I'm pretty right there with you. But you had the Black Rifle.
Yeah.
So that one's a little hardcore.
I love it. It was really
but
good.
Those
though.
are good. Yeah, I love that company,
really
man.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of them.
I started seeing pop-up coffee shops for Black Rifle Company.
Yeah, I haven't been to one. Have you?
I've never been to one.
I want to go to one.
I was driving down to San Antonio a couple months ago, and I saw like two on the way, and I was like, wow.
Trivia, man. First trivia question. We just watched the UFC fights tonight.
Yeah.
We're both fight fans, and we both train. So I figured I'd throw a few of those in there. First trivia question is, who has the most knockouts in UFC history? Is it Derek Lewis or Matt Brown? They're number 1 and 2. Who has the most?
Derek Lewis.
It's Derek Lewis.
Cool.
Got it. Okay, 1 for 1. 1 for 1. Figured I'd test his MMA knowledge a little bit.
I have no clue what kind of questions he's asking right now, so I'm coming in blind. So
yeah, that's if you haven't seen the other episodes, for anyone that's new to the pod, they're from left field, you know. So, but that's what makes it fun, lighthearted, especially in the beginning. Kind of gets everybody loosened up. Okay, so second one. What city am I from? Memphis. Okay, 2 for 2. I threw that one in there. I was like, I feel like this one's gonna be, you know, an easier one for him. No, I figured you'd know that one. I was like, but I wouldn't have been. Okay. You know, I wouldn't have been butthurt about it if you didn't. But yeah, it's Memphis. So you got that 2 for 2. Okay. Number 3. Now we're getting in left field here. We're getting a little out of hand. Is hippo sweat? So hippos, is their sweat red or blue when it hits the air? Because it does turn a color. And I did not know this until I was looking up questions.
I'm gonna go with blue.
It's red.
Oh, okay, cool.
I had no clue about that, though. I was looking
weird.
up random animal facts, and I was like, what can I pull from, you know, that's crazy.
Weird.
Bro, I didn't know any animal or obviously not humans, but had any type of colored sweat. So it said it's not red when it comes out, but something about the chemicals of hitting the oxygen.
Like human blood did something similar. Maybe, I don't know. When it hits the air, it turns red. But
we'll have to ask Linnea after, because her being in nursing school, I bet she knows.
Absolutely.
Okay, so 2 for 3. Back to a little bit of a combat sports question. Who was the only combat sports athlete in the top 5 of Forbes for earnings this past year, 2023? Nope.
No?
It was a boxer, actually.
Oh, boxer.
Got a guess for boxers? Not Jake Paul or anything like that. I don't consider him.
A true boxer.
Yeah, right. A true boxer.
No,
It's Canelo.
Okay, I can see that now. Okay.
So I didn't look at the top 10, but I'm going to go back later because I'm curious who's in the top 10. But it was 4 soccer players of all athletes, and then it was Canelo.
Messi, Ronaldo, and then whoever else.
And Connor didn't fight. I think that's the thing.
Okay.
He didn't fight last year, right?
So no, he
from
didn't.
the leg break.
He's been like out for 2 years, something like that. Yeah.
So that's probably what put Canelo ahead.
Okay, interesting. Okay, cool.
Okay, so number 5, last trivia question. What year did UFC 1 occur?
1991.
Final answer?
I'll roll with it. 1991, final answer.
93.
Oh, 93.
93, because that's the year I'm born, so that one always sticks out to me.
Okay.
But yeah, 93. So I can always remember how old the UFC is based on just how old I am, you know?
So that's what, 2 for 5?
2 for 5, yeah. Hey, good thing you're not taking, because you'd be taking a shot if we were drinking, but
Yeah.
hey, it's all good. I got to figure out something. Y'all help me, and that's a good thing. In the comments, if we're not drinking alcohol, if we're just drinking caffeine, what could we do for the guests if they don't get enough questions right? Or if they get all of them right, what do I have to do?
Maybe you could stack up like dares or something like that, and then off camera, like we can record like a different segment.
Stack up what?
Like dares.
Oh,
like,
dares.
Like a dare or something.
Okay, and they have to pick one of the, or I pick one of the dares. Whoever doesn't,
like that,
get it right. Okay, that's a good idea.
And then so that it doesn't get out of hand, you can have like a couple of dares prepared ahead of time.
Okay.
You know, and we don't do each other dirty.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to vet these dares coming in before they make the final list. Is what we're gonna do. Okay, so tell me, some of this we've already talked about, but they won't know, right? So tell me about your upbringing. Just kind of generally go into what was life like for Gabe as a kid.
Yeah, so that's really good question. I had a really good childhood. You know, I was blessed. I had everything I needed and more. We never lacked anything. My parents, you know, I'm who I am today because of my parents. My mom has always been really supportive. My dad is always, you know, he's the one that's been in every workout, every practice. He never missed a beat. If I needed shoes, I got shoes. Like, you know, I've never lacked anything, and I've always been very blessed in that front. It is actually, you know, it's something I'm incredibly thankful for every single day. I know I wouldn't be the person I am today because, you know, without my parents, and I give them a lot of honor for that. They're the reason I'm here, absolutely. But yeah, and you know, I like everything. There's things that happen, you know, like I, you know, bullied growing up, and it seems trivial because, you know, every time I hear like an upbringing story, it's like, oh, I was bullied growing up, right? And it seems like it's this over, but when you're a kid and when you're growing up and you're going through things, like those things seem like they're, you know, monumental. Even if, you know, now looking back, I can, you know, look back and realize that, hey, you know, maybe I definitely didn't have it as bad as I thought I did, right? And sometimes you can get so focused on the problems and on not even problems, just on situations, right? And perspective and opinions and different things that are happening. But, you know, back then that was something that kind of shifted my perspective or influenced me. I always had this kind of chip on my shoulder. Like I needed to prove people that I am who I say I am. I am, you know, fast enough. I was never the fastest. I was never the strongest. I was never the smartest. I just didn't know how to quit, right? Like that's just, and I always wanted to prove people, like if someone came doubting and kind of putting something on me that I didn't think was accurate, I had to go out and prove them wrong, right? And that trend continued, you know, until very recently. But yeah, that was kind of really my childhood. I went to military school, you know, great family, you know, dynamics. Of course, no family's perfect, but that, you know, they're like, I really can't complain about anything, right? Like I was blessed, you know, truly.
So you weren't born in the U.S., right? You were born in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
What age did you come over to the U.S.?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Moved to South Florida December of 2014. So I was 14, turning 15 the month after.
Okay.
Started high school there, freshman year in Broward County. Stayed there. So I lived in Florida for 3.5 years. Halfway through freshman year, and then finished out high school, graduated from there, and I love Florida. You know, Florida is amazing. You know,
yeah,
fishing, sun, beaches, you can't complain.
The weather,
right? Puerto Rico too. Like we you know, we could go to the beach any time of the year. It could be Christmas Eve, and we could go to the beach. Like it's always tropical and hot and warm, and I loved it too, right? Like it can't go wrong either.
Yeah, you got that's two good climates. I'm a big fan of the warm climates myself. So.
Yeah, I could say like there's this quote out there that people say like, oh, I live where you vacation, and like that was definitely the story of my upbringing in the Caribbean and in South Florida. Like it was just palm trees and sun, you know. Like, beautiful.
I can only imagine the transition had you moved to a cold climate in the U.S. or if it was somewhere up north.
I was very against it. So I went on a visit to a small school in Indiana, and they offered me a full ride for track and all that. And I was so against. I went. My official visit was, I think it was like end of May, and it was like 25 degrees. And I was like, dude, this is not for me. I can't do this. Like I know.
In May.
May, mid-May. For me, cold was like my kryptonite.
Yeah. Hey, bro, I'm the same. And one of the things I want to get into is the cold plunges and the ice baths. And I've never done it before. But, we have the same mentality. We love doing things that challenge us or things that people wouldn't, most people won't do. They won't step foot into. So I'm going to do it. I'm just like, man, that's also my weakness. So, like, how's it going to feel when I get there?
So
have you done that?
Yes, I've done very regular ice baths when I was in college. I was actually required to do them. I remember when I first got to college, I was super anti cold tubs and cold plunges. Like I remember I did it once and I maybe lasted 2 minutes. We were in a hotel traveling for a race, and my dad had bought a big like plastic trash can from like Home Depot, and because we had a shower, not a tub, and filled it up halfway with ice, halfway with water, and all that work. We were in like a second or third floor. We did all that work bringing up the trash can, and I could only stand there for like 30 seconds. And this was back when I was in high school, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. Period.
Was he upset, or was he okay?
No, I mean, I'm over there shivering and and maybe I did stay longer. I don't, because I know my dad would have been like, and we did all this, we gotta get in there. But I really don't remember how long I stayed. I knew that I was totally against it. I was like, oh my god, like this is terrible. So I get to college, and they have all these fancy facilities and the hot tub and the cold plunge, and I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. So preseason starts, we start practice. I ran track at Bama, and we didn't give you the whole backstory, but I ran. So we had all this crazy fancy facilities, and for months I'm just like, yeah, no. And my coach is like, yeah, everybody got to get in the cold tub today. And I'm like, and I'm sneaking out like, I'm not me. And one day I remember we had a really hard workout, and he was not gonna leave without me getting in the cold tub. So he knew that I wasn't doing it, and walks me to the training room and tells the athletic trainer like, this kid needs to get in the cold tub. So I'm over there like I don't nearly, I feel good, I'm fine. And it got to a point where like, we're staying here until you get in there. And I got in the cold tub, maybe staying there for 20 minutes in 44-degree water. And ever since then, I did it regularly, weekly, but it takes me 20 minutes just to get in there. I'm looking at the cold water like, I really want to do this. And everybody always makes fun of me, but it sucks. It never gets easier. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. It's just brutal.
And that kind of there's so many topics we're going to get through in here, so we may just intertwine them as we're going, right? But that is such a fitting description, the cold tub thing, to me, for like jiu-jitsu or training any martial art. If you're around guys that are like at the top, like we have plenty of black belts at Next Generation, right? We get better as we go, obviously, more in whatever combat sport you're taking part in. But as you said, how it never gets easier until you get to that point. Like as a black belt, there's always a guy in the gym who's going to beat you. Even if you get the black belt, you still may not beat the best black belt in the gym, Or if you go to some other gym, there's always a guy better than you, or better fighter, or better, So it's kind of like if you jump around enough in that sport and you train hard and you're willing to go with anybody, it's kind of like you said that cold tub would be. there's always going to be, it's always going to be hard.
Yeah.
There's always someone there that could beat you.
Yeah, and I want to add something too. Like just thinking through, it's not that it gets easier either. Like I said, it doesn't get easier, but your body adapts. Like your body starts learning. And it's like if you're in a room that has a constant sound on the background, when you first walk into the room, you hear it a lot. It gets annoying. After 20 minutes, you don't even hear the sound. Mm-hmm. Same with smell. You walk into a room and it smells bad. After 10, 20 minutes, your body gets acclimated. You don't smell it. It doesn't smell like bad anymore. But when you first initially walk, so it's the same thing with a cold tub. It sucks. And it never, it doesn't mean that the smell or the sound is gone, right? The hardness is still there, but your body gets better equipped to handle it. And exactly. It's the same with anything hard that you do. Jiu-jitsu, like you start as a white belt, all the movements are foreign and are difficult. You don't know where to put your hands, but as you go, you don't even need to think about these things. It's just muscle memory. Mm-hmm. I think that's really interesting how the body works. It's so awesome.
The way
it's perfectly equipped to handle anything that comes its way.
God's creation, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's insane.
Amen. Yeah.
Coming from another country to America, maybe your answer is different now than it would be when you were a kid, but tell me a little bit about both. Do you like it here better or in Puerto Rico better? And then what did you think when you first came?
Yeah, so when I got to Florida, right, like I was almost 15, so I was young. I remember I didn't want to leave because I had my circle, my friends, and there's still, one or two people that I still talk to regularly from Puerto Rico, and, I haven't seen them in years. But we just had, through sports, created a strong bond. So for me, it was all I knew. All I knew was Puerto Rico, and, it's like anything, when I graduated college, I didn't want to leave Tuscaloosa. I've been there for 4 years. It's my comfort zone. But I got to Florida, and at first it was difficult because you don't know anybody, and as the thing is that young people are very social creatures, right? Like you depend on interaction and being part of things and being invited to things. Like it's a big part. And so the first 2 weeks we moved in mid-December, classes hadn't started, I didn't know anybody. We're difficult because you feel like you're in this whole new place by yourself, but my parents were with me, my brother was with me, so I never felt alone. And once classes started, people just started coming up and talking. Like everybody was super friendly. I never felt left out of anything. I remember the first person I met, his name was Kevin. He just walked. I was sitting by myself, first day lunch on a table, and I went to a big high school. So my high school was one of the biggest in the U.S.
Really?
I had 100 students. My graduating class was 1,200, and and it's just from freshman year to senior year, so it's just big high school. And comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, why are you sitting alone? My name is Kevin." And we started conversation. He brought me over to his table. I just started meeting people. I was truly blessed, and people were very friendly all the time, right? And I never. Once I got out of I was bullied when I was younger, so 6th grade, 7th, 8th. But once I left, that ended, right? So I was very blessed in high school. Like I was never, around a bad group. I never, so it was really good. And I met people very quickly. We got integrated very quickly. It's definitely safer. Florida was definitely safer than Puerto Rico. More opportunities. I think my answer doesn't change. I think I would have still said that I like Florida better because my opportunities with sport, you're more likely to be able to get to a Division I school when you're in the States because of the exposure and the attention that high schools get here in the States, and overall just a lot more opportunities to get plugged in and get in the sport. You're more accessible. So I really liked it from the beginning, and I never, I love going back home to Puerto Rico. My family still lives in Puerto Rico, but I don't know that I would go back to live there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense for sure. So that's a good transition when you mentioned how safe it was in Florida versus Puerto Rico. Did anything occur, maybe the bullying or anything like that, when you were younger that led you to be interested in fighting like you are now?
No, I mean, we were stupid kids in high school, right? Like, I mean, in high school, we like getting into trouble. We you know, like
especially young boys.
Yeah, and we like getting into fights and stuff like that. We liked, we liked seeing but I never like thought I would be or start training martial arts at any point. Like it was never something that I want to do that, right? Like, and I watched the UFC fight. And in fact, I can tell you, my brother started before me. My brother Jeremy, he started training before me, and he was like, "Yo, you should try this. You should try this." And I'm like, "Why would I pay and sign up for someone that beat me up?" Right? Like, that was my. But this is when I was still running track.
Yeah.
And
what age did he start, or how old were y'all?
I was my senior year of college, so he started a few months, like I'd say maybe even a year before me.
Okay.
I just, he was definitely always more into it than I was. For me, I was just like, why would I, sign up for somebody to beat me up and like, have some sweaty dude on top of me? Like, it just that's not fun.
I think that's some of our all of our thoughts in the beginning.
And in high school, I was like, wrestlers, like to me they were weird. Like why in high school it's like a taboo thing, right? Oh, you're a wrestler. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
But my whole perspective has changed, since, of course. I mean, now here I am, and here we are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fine. But there was never anything that really led me to want to fight. It was just something, stupid kids do. I've learned that men have an overinflated ego when it comes to fighting, and in that topic, right? We think that we can do more than what we actually can do. And that was actually very apparent when I first started at Next Gen. I walked in, they're like, yeah, I can fight. And you learn very quickly that that's not the case.
Yeah.
And you get humbled very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's been the best thing about training martial arts, is just the awareness that comes, that you never know who, even people that look smaller than you or more nonchalant, that like you never know who's who. And everybody could get up and, give you a whooping, it's just how it is. So it's opened my eyes a lot, and how ignorant I was, and how ignorant my group was, and how, we can fight and we can do it. I'm like, no, bro. Like, if something real would have happened, like, we would have been in trouble. And that's the truth of it.
Maybe if you can guarantee the other people aren't trained and they're normal guys.
But you never know.
You never know. And then.
And in the heat of the moment, people start cheating, and I say cheating. Why is it really cheating in a fight? Yeah, but
jumping or weapons, cheap shots,
things you don't see coming. You can never account for all the variables. And I learned that very quickly too, growing up. There's just pride will get in the way, but if you're truly wise and smart, like you can't account for all the variables and all the things that can happen when you're on the street. We train on mats, right? In concrete, people that are around. You never know who's who. Like, it's just not worth it, right? Like, unless your life depends on it, why take the risk, right? And,
exactly. You want to be prepared if it happens, and then have the best case scenario to win. But you don't ever want, you shouldn't want it to happen. Yeah,
and back then, you looked at. This is my perspective. I won't put words in your mouth, but like for me, my perspective of a man was someone that didn't get pushed around, right? Like someone that didn't allow people to push him around. And like now I've realized, looking back, like a true man's character is measured by when he knows how to walk away, right? And how to walk away in a way that, you're not making it seem like you're being dismissive, like just truly meaning, like in your heart, like, listen, I don't want any trouble. Like, I don't even, it doesn't matter how trained you are, like how skilled you think you are. And our coach John says something like, if you're ever out in a party or in a bar or whatever, and you get into it, and like, listen, I'll buy you a drink, man. And in all reality, could you beat them up? Probably, but you never know. And it's just being able to take the high road. Like, to me, that truly measures the character of a man and the character of a person in general, is how they can handle situations like that.
I agree completely. One of the things that came to my mind as you were saying that is that I know I felt, and it's the same thing you were describing, I felt as a young man, especially being a smaller guy growing up, I was, and being even though, I thought I was tough and could fight or whatever back then, like I was tough. I would say, like, as far as like,
Yeah.
being a tough kid, I was tough,
Yeah.
but I didn't know how to fight like back then. Not being younger.
Yeah.
But I remember a strong, and I can see this in other young guys too, man. Like a strong sense of just any chance I could get to prove to the world
Yeah.
that I was tough.
Yeah.
That I was strong. It's like I knew
Absolutely.
it, but I don't walk around and people automatically give me
Yeah.
that because I'm a small guy.
Yeah.
So I just want every chance I can get. I would like pester my friends to try to wrestle and stuff when I was younger.
Yeah.
And some of them were so much, they would just throw me around or whoop me, but a lot of them I would still beat, but I would feel like had to have the proving at all times.
Where do you think that comes from?
Where do I think it comes from? I definitely think puberty and testosterone hormones raging plays a part in it. But I think we all, as men, have an innate nature to conquer and to like
Yeah.
chase down things.
Yeah.
And to
If you think
you have to find what
Yeah.
you need to chase down.
Yeah,
But,
if you think about the social hierarchy and the way that, even societies hundreds of years ago, men are expected to be providers, protectors, and just the tough, warrior persona. And I'm not talking about masculinity or toxic masculinity, like, that's a different conversation itself. But if you really think about it, women and children are the only people that are loved unconditionally. Men, it's based on what value they can provide, and we know that because it's hardwired from a young age. We are always trying to prove our value to society through different things, and we always looking for that validation that we are the men, right? Like we are men, and even from young age we're always looking for that, and that can always also be a source for wounds if that masculinity is not validated. And then at later years, it could turn into, that Mr. Nice guy that's always conceding to everything and just trying to please everybody because they didn't get the validation the right way that they needed from a young age. But it's all hardwired. So I really, it's really interesting that you feel this way, right? And you talked about it, and because I felt the same way. And I think that's not anything that's, alien to people around. Like, I think all kids have that desire to just prove their value because it's always been hardwired through evolution and through generations of how society works.
Yeah, I know. I felt it strong, and that makes a lot of sense that it comes just from the way that men have to operate around their like you said, the social hierarchy, and just whatever group, whether it was back in the day and it's a small village of people, or it's the world now with social media, and you're kind of everyone sees you in every way. And another thing, I don't want to go dark for too long, so I'm gonna kind of go dark and then we'll bring it back up. But something that I've noticed from my perspective, there could be instances that I haven't seen, but from what I've kind of noticed looking at the news and stuff, when those terrible, horrific situations happen where there's mass shootings and things like that, it's almost always a male. And when it is a male, it's almost always a male that, if you look at their history and their background, they've been rejected by society.
You can trace it to a wound.
In that way that you're talking about, a wound. And if you don't get accepted in some way, and you find your place, and you find a way where you can fit into how things work in society, then it, like you said, it causes those wounds.
This is the last thing I'll say about it too. I know you want to move on, but I don't think having a wound is any excuse for anything, right? And my statement is always this: heroes and villains have the same story. It's how they choose to act on it, right? The hero and the villain. You look at Batman, look at Superman, whatever hero we always see in movies. They always have a dark upbringing or a dark or something about them that they were always just different. The villain just wants everybody else to feel that way as well. They want to make everybody else feel the way that they felt. The hero makes it his mission to make sure that nobody else feels that way.
Yeah.
So it's that contrast, and it what makes the difference? What makes a person go either way? I don't know. But it's always been something like, it's not an excuse to have a wound. Everybody has a wound. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody has a wound. It's all about how you look at it and what you decide to do with it. You can use it for good. You can use it for pain and suffering to the world.
In the same way you said earlier, that when you were a kid, you thought it was a little bit worse than it was when you kind of got older. Looking back, you're like, that's just what I was going through at the time, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how a lot of those wounds are. They focus on, because maybe it's the worst thing they've ever gone through. Yeah. So to them, it's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst thing they've experienced. But if they can kind of, step back and realize, maybe some things they can be grateful for, or some things that are positive, and a lot of it, I agree. I think this is kind of what you're saying. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that it is your responsibility, how you handle the wound. It's not your fault the wound's there necessarily, depending on what it is. But it's your fault if you let it eat at you and continue to ruin your life or ruin other people's lives.
Absolutely. So. And I think it also goes back to when you're a kid, you think the world revolves around you, and in a way it does, right? Because you need to be fed, you need to be driven everywhere, you need to be told to do your homework. Like everything revolves around you and what you're doing. But as you get older, you realize that, and that's why all those problems, or I'd say dilemmas that feel like they are so huge, and to kids they really are, because to them the world revolves around us when we're kids, but as you grow out of that, you realize like there's more to life than just this, right? And it's called wisdom, right? And experience. So once you realize that, you're like, oh, it's really not as bad as we made it out to seem back then, right? Like, so my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to find that valuable. I know there's plenty of people out there feeling that way that we've talked about. So, both of which ways. So, let's talk a little bit about when you were at Alabama running track like a stud. I mean, dude, you ran track at a D1 school, SEC. At what point did you realize that you had the talent to run at a high level?
I never did.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll be completely transparent. Everybody else around me saw the potential, but I never did. I always had doubt. I always felt like an imposter. I never felt like I was qualified. I always felt like I was lacking something and I didn't belong. And it's funny because I remember the whole journey started when I went to do a Sunday workout. I was young, maybe 10th freshman, sophomore year, something like that. And the track was empty. There was one other person on the track. It was a coach and their athlete. And I was doing my workout, and I don't remember how the conversation started between the coach and my dad, but he had a UCLA shirt, and back then UCLA was my dream school, so I noticed it right away. Because I wanted to go to California, be a surfer, bro, and be next to the beach, and that was my thing. But so I saw the UCLA shirt, didn't say, but my dad and the coach started talking. It turns out this guy, world-renowned coach, 4-time Olympic medalist, sprinter, NBC analyst. He's when you watch track and field in the Olympics, that voice on the TV, that's him. Right, that's him.
He's the guy.
And they started talking. His name is Otto, and they started talking. He was he was impressed that I was there on a Sunday, getting my workout in, and we, this essentially decided that I was going to start training with him the next year. And he saw the potential, way before I did. My dad always saw my potential way before I did. Everybody else around me saw the potential, but I always had I'll always say this, and it's actually super true. I was always my worst critic. Like, there was nothing that anybody else could say that I wasn't saying to myself already, or even worse. Yeah. Right? Like, whenever I used to play basketball. Whenever I had a bad game, I was my own worst critic. Like, I was super hard on myself. Whenever I had a bad race, I could always point out the 10 different things that I did wrong, and I think that goes to why I made it as far as I did. But in a way, it also made my life very tough, because I was always in my own head. And I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I never felt like I reached my full potential in the sport. because of me being in my own head. And
Okay.
I feel like it hindered a lot of my progress, and I didn't even feel like I belonged until my junior year of college. So I got to Alabama, and I always felt like not an outsider, but I always felt like I had to prove everybody that I belonged there. I needed to be the guy. And it wasn't until my junior year of college where I really felt like listen, like I'm being too hard on myself. I've earned being here. I've earned this spot, and I deserve to be here. So I didn't give myself credit until junior year of college, and I started running track in 8th grade. But I was always just my own worst critic in my own head, just seeing over. So it's funny because a lot of people would think that way, but I never saw it till almost till the end.
So what made you transition to seeing it?
Yeah, so I think it was a combination of I started to have fun. Before, I was really, all business. Like, I was all, I got so structured and needed to eat the right thing. And I was so hyper-focused on optimizing, right? What can I do to get the edge? Like, what can I do to, like, I wanted to do the thing that nobody else was doing and chasing that edge. When in reality, like, the biggest progress you'll ever get, or the biggest improvement in performance you'll ever get, is just if you start having fun with it, because it stops being a thing that you have to do, and a thing that you just need to take off, right? So for me, when I was going to a race for the longest time, I had my routine. I had to eat the same thing for breakfast, and optimize this, and I had to get my 15 minutes of meditation, and I was always hyper optimized, when in reality, like, dude, just treat it like it's a training run. I do this every day. I go out there and I run. I prepare. There's nothing different from today, except there's people in the stands, and I'm running against other schools. Like, other than that, I run every single day. I do this every day. Why am I making it this whole thing? And
Yeah.
I started to actually have fun, and it started paying off. I started to see improvement that I had never been able to get before. I started to get the opportunities that I hadn't gotten before, being part of the 4x4 relay when it mattered, and it had the biggest impact in my life, in terms of moving it for the better, when I just started having fun. And that was the biggest thing I was overlooking. It's so simple, and I feel like a lot of people nowadays, especially in this culture, are so hyper focused on the after, like, morning routine. Wake up at 5, and from 5 to 5:15 you gotta get a cold shower, and then you gotta do 10 minutes of meditation, and then you journal, and then you and then you spend all this time doing all this thing, except doing the thing that you gotta do, right? And like, and Chris Williams has a quote that I love. It's just like, thinking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Writing a thing on your to-do list is not doing the thing. Thinking about doing the thing tomorrow is not doing, like, just do the thing, and stop adding all these other, like, oh, I need to get my face mask on and do the blue light, like, you know what I mean? Like, just do the thing, just have fun with it, and it'll give you better results than trying to get all these different improvements in something that you haven't even tried to do in the first place. You can't improve something that you haven't learned how to do yet. And that was me. I hadn't learned. I knew how to run. I didn't know how to have fun and how to actually, like, run free. I was always running with weights, essentially. Things holding me back. The need to prove myself. The need to just be the person, right? And eventually I just learned that you don't need to be that person. Like, just, what do you want to do? Like, have fun, right? Like, don't do it for anybody else. Just, do I want to run? Yeah, okay, so then go run. And that's when I start to see the best improvement,
Man, so some thoughts are running through my head as you were saying that. To that book up there is by Russ, the artist, the rapper, and it's called Get Out of Your Own Head. Get Out of Your Own Head.
It's all in your head.
Or It's All in Your Head, sorry. It's All in Your Head. That book, and then also, well, let me not jump off topic, but that book it's all about the same thing. Like, don't do all these other things, or don't procrastinate, or don't think, like, don't be afraid of your dreams.
Yeah.
I heard that last night actually watching an old episode of The Ultimate Fighter. Don't be afraid of your dreams, because if you are, you're just gonna hold yourself back. Like, you either make it or you don't, but either way, being afraid is just gonna hold you back. You know, and that's kind of what he talks about in that book. And then also, this ties in. This is flowing really well, but it ties into multiple things for me. So also, each year, the past 2 years, I've come up with one word for myself that's gonna like define the next year. Something that I wanna like.
The word of the year.
Yeah, word of the year, just to help myself out.
Yeah.
That I can go back and reference. And for this year, it's clear. Just the word clear,
Ooh.
which looking at you wouldn't. You're like, what would that mean? But it's clear things out of the way. It's clear the path. Things like this podcast is a good example. I've had it for over a year, but I've only done a certain amount of episodes. When I did do the certain amount of episodes, it wasn't once every week like I'm doing now. It wasn't structured. Yeah. I didn't have everything set up like I wanted it. I was just, for no reason, kind of like procrastinating on it, you know? Just clear the things out of your way and go do it, you know? Committing further to jiu-jitsu and not missing days that, you know, for making excuses to miss days or whatever it may be. Just all these different things in my life. Clear the BS out of the way and actually go for it, you know? Yeah,
absolutely. My word of the year is boldness.
Oh, you have one too? Okay.
I've always been passive, right? I like it. And passive meaning, like, you know, I'm very laid back. Like, I don't like being superimposed on people or kind of putting things out there. But this year, I'm throwing all that out of the window. And if it makes me uncomfortable, it probably means that I need to do it, right? Yeah. That's how I've been thinking about it.
I love that.
Because I've always just tried to stay in my comfort zone, in my bubble. So this year, regardless of what people think, and you know, me posting content on Instagram, I was always scared of doing that. Like, it terrified me. The different things that putting myself out there, speaking in front of camera, like those things. But this year, like, I'm throwing all my fears out the window and I'm just doing it. Like, I'm focused on boldness. What are the things that I'm scared to do that I've always wanted to do? And I'm slowly just making my way through that list. Like, okay. And I'm not, you know, trying to be super disciplined with it, meaning, like, I'm not trying to be super strict. I don't have a regimen. Or, like, if I think of something that, like, man, like, I want to do this. But, okay, that now I start figuring out how do I actually do this, you know, and make it happen. So it's been awesome. I love the concept of the word of the year. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been very beneficial for me, and at some points in my life, I've been kind of like, do I really need to like come up with some word, like you know, almost like, is it corny, like whatever. And then when I did, I was like, you know, let me try something new, and I did it, and I was like, wow, I referenced back at that word so many times throughout the year.
That's the thing too. Like, a lot of people do this, but they forget, like, they do it and then think about it one time and then they throw it out. Like, no, dude, like, that's why you have to be intentional, because it has to be a word. It has to mean something. You can't just, like, I didn't just come up with that word on the, like, boldness, you know, like, that sounds fun. Yeah. Like, no, dude,
pick
like,
a cool one.
Like, I remember how I got that word. I was driving to work and I was listening to worship music, and, you know, I was praying, and I was, you know, just kind of thinking through things that I was going through. And, you know, I get this pop-up on my phone. I have this app called Motivation. So you get, like, different quotes, and the word, or the quote was, and I'll never forget it because it was like an answer to my prayer instantly. And the quote was, this next year, you're moving from just surviving to thriving. And I was like, okay, well, that feels like it's meant for me, right? And I was in prayer, and I was meditating, and I was just listening to worship music, spending time with the Lord on my commute, and I just got the word boldness on my way to my office, and I was like, wow, like, that's going to be my word of the year. And so I started implementing, but I'll never forget it because it means something, and I know how it got to where, you know, I have it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know how I got to that word. A lot of people just think like, yeah, you know what? fun. Like, I'm gonna do fun things. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Like, it has to mean something.
It needs to, yeah.
Yeah, it has to resonate in some way, shape, or form.
And a lot of times life brings it to you somehow. I think that's way better than sitting down and trying to think, what is my word for this year? You know? Just kind of comes to you. That's how clear it came to me. So
Absolutely.
Got a couple more questions, then we'll get to the game portion where I give a series of 2 different things, and you can't tell me why, but you have to pick one.
Okay.
You have to pick
cool.
which one you prefer. Okay, so last couple of questions real quick. So what accomplishments in track are you most proud of? Or accomplishment, if it's one that you focus on in your head, like that is what I'm most proud of.
I'm most proud of the journey, because the man that came out of the man that graduated from Alabama is not the boy that came in. Like, that program took me. I will always live by this. Like, Alabama made me the person that I am today. In terms of, it taught me how to work hard. It taught me how to be an independent person, and true responsibility, in the sense of, nobody was telling me that I needed to go to practice. Nobody tells you once you go to college, like, it's a change. Nobody tells you need to eat, that you need to sleep at the right time. It's so easy to get caught up in college life.
Oh man.
And I'm not saying that I didn't, right? I had my fun and I partied but not everything can be that. And you realize very quickly that if you decide to goof off, you're going to see the consequences very quickly. Like, the semesters and the years stack up very quickly. So I'm most proud of the journey. And I'm not saying that, accolades weren't important. Like, I was chasing things. I was chasing times that I beat. I was chasing times that I didn't beat. I got to run in the biggest stages with the pressure on national TV. Like, I did all those things. But to me, when I think back, that's not the moments that I think about most. It's the chase, and it was the days where I didn't feel like I wanted to do it, the days where I didn't want to go to practice and go lift, had to go do hills, and I was sore and tired from the previous. Like, though, it's not fun, but it's the same thing as jiu-jitsu, where when you finish, you're like, you really, like, I really did that, right? Like, you I didn't want to do it in the first place, and I went and I did it. And so, the time that I spent with my teammates, those are my favorite memories from just running track in general. I'm very, I got plugged into a church. I hadn't been to church in years, and very quickly, you can, in the South, like, church is very big, right? Like, everybody is in the church, and I'm very grateful that things happened the way they did. Like I said, like, I went on an official visit, full ride, and I declined it, and I went as a walk-on. Like, I was, I went as a walk. I wasn't a scholarship athlete. I wasn't, I came in bottom of the barrel, and I just say that in a way, like, I didn't come in known. I never went to state in Florida in high school. I wasn't, everybody in college, once you get there, like, everybody's like state champion, and, a national ranked and number of time in the country. Like, I was none of that. Like, I came in as the underdog, as the guy. Like, I was the invisible guy in the back, right? Like, and the growth that I saw is really the thing that I'm the most proud of. Getting plugged into a church and learning how to be independent. The friendships that I still have to this day. My coach, who I have the utmost respect for, and I will always stand that he's one of the best sprints coach in the country, and same thing with I've always been so blessed with people in my life that, my high school coach, best in the, one of the best in the world. I like the person that you see here. Mm-hmm. I'm not. It's not all that special. Like, the true Gabe. Like, I'm just a collection of all the people that have gone out of their way to pour into me. I've never been the fastest. I've never been the smartest. I've never been the biggest. But I've always had people in my corner that have gone out of their way to pour into me, and that I've always believed, even when I didn't give them the reason to believe. So, everything that I say, everything that I've learned is because people that are smarter than me and that are better than me have taught me these things. And all of that happened in college and in high school. I've always been blessed with a circle that has built me up instead of torn me down. And that's the reality of it. Like I can't say that I'm here and I did all that, but I couldn't have done any of that by myself, and I will never say that I did. And I'll go as far as to say that people that say that they're self-made, it's not true. Like you always need someone. Even Superman needs Lois to help him sometimes. There is no self-made. We are social creatures. We need support. We need help, and that is, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions that are out. Like, this culture has glorified loneliness. It's almost glorified the hustle, and like you need to go into this dark season. And I've been going through a difficult time, these past few months. But if I didn't have the circle of people that I do through, the church and the gym and the coaches and like my parent, like if I didn't have the circle that I did, like I'd be a mess right now. But it's because of the people that are around. So I will always stand by that. The most important thing that you can ever do is surround yourself with people that are better than you. And there's such a cliche nowadays, like, oh, no one's better than, like, there are people that are smarter, there are people that are better equipped, and if you lack on something, you need to get around those people. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the whole point of life, right? Exactly. Like there's no shame in it or taboo. I'm always trying to get into rooms that are filled with people that are smarter and better, and that's the best thing that anybody can do. That's how you get wisdom, right? Like, if I want to learn anything, I go to the Bible. I go to people that are smarter. Like that's it. I don't know if I got into a tangent there, but
it takes a very humble person to say what you're saying about not being self-made, and I agree. And before you even said it, I was thinking in my head that I agree. I've always thought that the self-made thing isn't. That I don't like when people say that in the same way, because I don't think anyone is self-made. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter you were stranded and you walked 10 miles because you needed to survive. You feel like I did that. I walked the 10 miles to find. What'd you find? You found, food and water. How did that get there? How did the store get there that you walked to, from the whatever? It's nothing is on your own.
And let's say that there's that, you get stranded online. What keeps you alive? The thought of seeing your family again. So even if you are in that, like, oh, I'm alone and you got to fend, but the thought of getting back to the people that you care about is what keeps you alive and keeps you in it. So there is no such thing as as just a self-made person. Like you're a collection of the people. I heard a quote the other day that there are no original thoughts. Everything, and of course, I mean, I don't completely agree with this, because there's always innovation and new and new merges of ideas that are creative, but in a way that all the thoughts that we have are things that we've either heard before, read before, seen before, in some way, shape, or form, right? And it's not necessarily plagiarism, right? Like you just you hear something that resonates and you adopt it, you include it in your index of things, your knowledge base essentially, and it comes up whenever it's relevant. So yeah, I'm a very firm believer in that. If anybody watching this like needed one thing to take away is like, get around people that are better than you. And it doesn't matter who you are, there's always someone better. There's always a bigger dog, there's always a badder dog, like there's always a smarter. It doesn't matter, I don't care who you are. But
in every aspect of life.
In every aspect of life. You want to be a better athlete, get around better people doing your sport. If you want to be a better business person, get around successful business owners. It's as simple as that. You got to learn from the people that are doing it, and if it doesn't align with the lifestyle that you want, then don't listen to people's opinions. I'm not saying be disrespectful, but sometimes you gotta like, thank you, I appreciate your point of view, but go do your own thing. Do whatever you think is right, feels right. Be authentic. That's the thing that society is lacking nowadays. Is authenticity in people. We're having a lot of clones and a lot of people with recycled opinions. You hear something, I say the same thing, right? Like, no, dude, like, do your own research, do your own homework, and make your own opinion. What do you think? A lot of the times nowadays, you talk to somebody and you hear that same old generic response, right? Like, oh, well, I believe in this because of, and I'm like, I've heard that 50 times before. What do you think? Like, what is your real opinion?
Exactly.
You sound like the last 50 people I talked to. Like, what is your true outlook? What do you really believe?
Or they're like, if you talk about politics or anything going on in the world, it's just the same thing you've seen on your phone, on your news feed, or on the TV.
It's a headline.
They just spit it back out.
They don't even read the article.
Yeah.
They give you the headline.
Yeah.
Oh, well, whatever is it. I'm like, I saw the headline too. It's not, like, what you telling me?
And it's okay to not know. It's
Exactly.
okay to say, I haven't looked into it. I don't really have an opinion on that.
Can we normalize saying, listen, I'm not educated enough about this?
Yeah, I do it a lot with politics.
I'll refrain from giving you an answer. And then there's some people that just can't.
They can't take it.
What do you think?
No, you have to think something about it.
I'm not even going to. Because then you say something, then you end up getting somebody mad anyway. Anyways.
Series of 2 things. You got to give me one or the other. You can't tell me why.
Okay.
Track or fighting?
Oh, man. You're putting it out there for me.
That's right.
And I can't tell you why.
No, you have to pick one. And you can't tell me why. That's what makes it fun.
I have to. I'll say fighting.
Fighting. Okay, interesting. Nate Diaz or Conor McGregor?
Conor.
Okay. Tattoos or piercings?
On myself, on other people.
We'll go with on women. We'll go with that.
Piercings.
Okay. We'll let y'all's mind wander wherever it goes. Pick one or the other. You get to either medal in the Olympics in track or be a fighter in the UFC.
Medal in the Olympics in track.
Okay. Skinny jeans or like the skin tight ones, or denim on denim, like jacket
my God,
and
it's
jeans.
Terrible. And I can't say why.
No.
Like, that's wild,
No,
man.
bro.
Denim on denim.
Okay. Big dogs or little dogs?
Big.
Okay. Nicky Rod or Gordon Ryan?
Gordon Ryan.
Okay. I know you don't drink right now, but clear liquor or dark liquor?
Dark.
Okay, same.
It's my preference.
Yeah.
Whiskey used to be the drink of choice.
Some whiskey back there, but we won't touch it tonight.
It looks good, but yeah.
And here too. Okay. Skydiving or rock climbing?
As like I can only do one, or if I could do one right now.
You can only do one.
I'll take skydiving.
Skydiving, okay. I've skydived. I have not rock climbed, so it's interesting.
I have rock climbed. That's why.
So you've done the opposite.
I've never skydived.
Sprints or long distance running?
Sprints. Can I capitalize that?
Same.
Sprints.
Same. I'd rather do sprints any day of the week.
You're in and out. Done. Quick.
Let's see. Would you rather be a janitor or a bus boy?
Bus boy.
Okay.
I like talking to people, man.
On women, a pretty face or a banging body?
Can I say personality?
No.
Personality and
if you had to pick one, your wife, she gets to have the whatever you think the ultimate body is, or whatever you think the perfect face is.
Body ages, man.
Well, yeah, true. We'll go. I don't want to make it unrealistic and say it doesn't age.
Let's say okay. I'll go with I don't know, man.
It's a tough one, right?
I'll go with pretty face.
Okay, pretty face. MLB or NBA?
NBA.
Okay. So the old style MMA shorts where they had the sponsors on there, or the new style where it's more
old
uniform. The old style. Me too, bro.
And
I wish they would bring it back
with the banners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed those. Okay, that's the last of the game. So,
Okay.
There we go. So moving on from that.
I gave you all the answers. You didn't give me any.
You want me to answer
I
them?
feel kind of blind. Yeah,
You know what I
please.
mean? Okay, I'll go.
At least the worst one.
Well, some of them won't make sense for me, but track or fighting, I'll go fighting.
Okay.
Because I didn't run track. Nate Diaz or Conor McGregor. I've always been a fan of both, but I'll go Conor McGregor. Tattoos or piercings, and this is we said on women.
Said on women, yeah.
I like both. Man. So it has to be no piercings if it. Well, no. Yeah, if it's just tattoos or piercings, that's tough, man. Oh, I gave you these. I'm like, this is tough. I'll go piercings.
Okay.
Where are we at here? Medal in the Olympics or fight in the UFC? I'll say fight in the UFC.
Okay.
Well, that's still. I mean, it's a lot higher.
I'll tell you why.
It's a lot
because
higher of an accomplishment.
I know you're not supposed to say why, but like, there's only 3 people every 4 years that medal, and I know there's multiple events.
Won the championship, right? In
Yeah.
the UFC, that would have been more of an accomplishment.
Yeah. Still, I think you only get a shot every 4 years,
Yeah.
and and in track if you don't run on the day, you could be the fastest man alive. You can be the fastest man in the world, but if you don't do it on the day that it matters, and I know it's the same with fighting, but I think it's so much more the margins for error are so much more.
Just with that gap of time, the one day, yeah.
A 0.1, and I think it's a 0.1 is like 5 meter, 5. I can't remember. My old coach he's the analyst in the NBC. He used to say all these measurements. Like the gap in a sprint, like in a 100-meter race, is so wild. How much a gap is. So again, like marginal things make a huge difference. Yeah. Anyways, keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Skinny jeans or denim on denim? Denim on denim.
Yeah. Any day.
I've rocked denim on denim once or
Okay,
twice.
fair.
But
You're making it sound like it's a bad thing.
Depends on how you do it. Let's be honest.
I don't know that I can pull it off.
Okay,
There's people
big
that
dogs or
certainly
little
can.
dogs? Big dogs. You know, I'm rolling with my boy Cairo out there. Nicky Rod or Gordon Ryan? I gotta go Gordon Ryan. Clear liquor or dark liquor? Dark liquor. Skydiving or rock climbing? Same thing with you. I've already done skydiving, so if I can only do one rock, I'll do rock climbing. Sprints or long distance? Sprints. Janitor or busboy? Probably busboy. Kids. If you're, I think of kids when I think of
you get tips. So you don't get tips as a janitor. That was my thing. At least you get the extra.
I think of schools and I think of kids when I think janitor. I guess you could be a janitor somewhere else, but the kids are gross. You know what I mean? As far as like when you're cleaning up for them.
That is true.
I would rather clean up after adults than I would clean up after kids.
That is fair. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so pretty face or banging body? Oh no, I gotta answer it. Ooh.
Let it be known that I did say personality. But I wasn't allowed to say that.
Yeah, agreed. But, I don't know what to say.
What's the first thing that pops into your mind right now? Say it.
The first thing, pretty face.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. MLB or NBA? I'm gonna go MLB. I would have used to have said NBA, but
okay,
things have changed a little bit. Old MMA shorts, definitely those over the Venom. Okay.
Cool.
Ooh, okay. Now I'm through the stressful part. Okay, so I think you kind of already answered what my first question was on here was when did you first start watching fighting? Did you mention that earlier?
No, I've always watched. So in Puerto Rico, it boxing was the thing. Like MMA, I didn't watch any MMA fights growing up. It used to be boxing, and once I got to college, I think it was in college. They start putting the MMA fights, the UFC fights on like the championship, like the numbered fights on the bars, before the party starts. So that's kind of like, that was my first exposure to it, I guess. But yeah, it wasn't something that I was like, yeah, like that's so cool. Like I was like, why would anybody willingly go in there and do that, right? Like that was my perspective back then. Yeah.
Okay. That we have a very different thing on that. Like I kind of grew up a little bit around some of the martial arts, and like I loved it so young.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch it. Me and my dad used to rent Blockbuster, the old UFCs from Blockbuster and stuff. Man, I miss Blockbuster.
Yeah,
Shout out to Blockbuster.
I remember going to Blockbuster on Fridays, getting 4 movies, and returning them the week after. But yeah, no, I did. The thing is, my thinking was, I wasn't against fighting. It wasn't. I was like, why would you? If you don't have to do it to survive. Like if you're not defending, why would you put your? But of course, now my perspective has changed. I had 2 fights last year, and it's like, now I'm the dumb one, right? But it is what it is.
Okay, so who is your favorite fighter, or if you want to give a couple guys that you're a big fan of, you can do that.
I'll do 3 because it's so hard to pick just one. I'll have to pick Charles Oliveira.
Okay.
Volkanovski. Mm-hmm. And I would have to go with Ilia Topuria right now.
Ooh, okay. So 2 of your favorites are the 2 guys fighting each other for the belt. Okay.
It's gonna be wild. I'm like, no opinion, but that my thinking was current fighters. If we're talking like all time, like that's different. I would pick something different, but right now those are my favorite current active fighters.
If I was to say who's your favorite fighter of all time, who first comes to your mind is like, I probably would pick them. Favorite fighter all time.
Like multiple names come up, but I mean, to me, I love John Jones, and it comes from a troubled background, and a lot of people have doubted him, but his story is crazy, and the way that his resilience shows in his fights, I love that. He just warrior heart, right? And I'll always get behind a guy that'll fight for what he gets. You have to fight for every inch you have that, because I had to fight for every inch that I got in everything that I've done. So I always like those guys over the overly cocky, and and I said I'm a fan of McGregor, and I am. I just think he can go over the top sometimes. But yeah, I like the guys that have to fight, scratch, and claw for every inch that they get in whatever they do. Business, athletes, etc.
How do your parents feel about you fighting?
Oh, they don't like it. They don't like it. My mom once has told me multiple times that why don't I go play golf or something, and, and my dad doesn't even like to talk about it. If it comes up, he's like, don't get me started. Like, I don't even want to know. And they're not very big fans. Yeah, and no, I don't think any family member is ever going to be a big fan of it. I think they grow to accept that that's just who you are eventually. But I don't think, and I see it like if it was my kid, or, and I don't have a son, but like if I did, like, and I can picture the worry, because when it's my training partners and buddies that are fighting, the anticipation just kills me, right? And I can't even imagine how it is for a family member. But what I would say is like listen, like we accept, we know what the risk is, and we accept it, and it's not even really about the fight. It's about the person that you're becoming, and the thing that you're learning about yourself, right? And I think fighting is one of the most beautiful sports right now, because you can't run away from your opponent. You're locked in a cage, you're in a ring, and it's truly you're seeing. I call it art, and I know it's overused, but it's art because you're seeing the rawness of human nature.
Expression.
You're seeing the rawness of emotion, human nature, the human spirit, and you see that, two people clashing, and to a lot of people it's violent, but if you look at it through that perspective, like, the human body is so miraculous and so impressive, and the biggest civilization, there's, as long as there's been civilization, there's been fighting for sport. Like, it's not, and people nowadays treat it like it's this, but back then, like, that was the entertainment. There wasn't any TV, or people went down to the Coliseum.
It was a lot more brutal than now.
Yeah, and right, so now it's more tame, but you still see the rawness, the emotion. You see a human spirit in display.
Mm-hmm.
And
lack thereof,
and sometimes or and lack of thereof, and sometimes we lose that perspective. Like, listen, like, this is, I think of, like, that's true sport, right? Like, that is the fight. You see the storyline, the clash of the titans whenever the big fights. I believe this is a story that when they're in there, like, there's no talk. It doesn't matter who you are, your background. What I like about combat sports is that all that talk and all the judgment, it stops the moment you walk into that cage and that door is locked behind you. There is no race that matters. There's no background, no upbringing, rich, poor, black, white, straight, gay, like, whatever it is, it stays outside the cage, and it all you see is two people battling it out to the best of their abilities, leaving their soul and heart out on that canvas. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to watch, that the rawness of the emotion that you can't replicate in any other sport, because it's a game. A lot of other sports are games, even running, there's no contact, but you're just seeing who runs faster. But, like, in a combat match, you're seeing that instinct of survival on display. And there's no, it's like watching a documentary, right? And you see a lion, on the hunt. You feel the emotion, right? Because his life depends on getting that kill and getting that zebra or getting that gazelle. But and we have the equivalent, I believe, is a UFC match, and even more so than boxing, because there's ground game. And so it's a truly a as close as you can get to hand-to-hand combat, like, authentic, right? And in a controlled and safe place, apart from all the blood and the cuts, and, like, yeah, it looks gnarly, and it's not fun, right, in the moment, but the amount of information that you gather about yourself, how you react under pressure, what you're made out of, you can't fake that. You can fool people all you want with words, but you cannot fake. It doesn't matter no matter who you are, you cannot fake that emotion. You can't fake. Your character is going to be on display in your spirit because of the nature of the sport, and that's my favorite thing about it. You can't fake it. It's the rawest form of who you are, authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's just a special thing about it. Like, nothing comes close to that.
I agree. It taps into a certain spiritual aspect.
That's the word. It's
living.
spiritual. It's almost spiritual. It's like it transcends the moment.
Can't replicate
especially
it.
For the guys that are in there who are putting it all on the line. Like, I can't think of anything more embarrassing than getting knocked out in front of the world. And these guys are walking in there knowing that, wearing it on their sleeve, and even when it doesn't go their way, they get up and do it again. Like, I admire fight so much. I absolutely, I admire those guys so much because of that the guys that truly, I said I had 2 fights, but they're not fights like like controlled environment, and it's more rule dense and stuff. But I have the utmost respect for the guys that and I'm not saying that they weren't real fights, but I have the utmost respect for the guys that do it for real, that just do it repetitively, and
the most ruthless rule sets.
Absolutely, 100%.
Even almost to a further extent, the bare knuckle fighting, man. Those guys get beat to a pulp, and you really get to see who's in there and who is the savage of the savage. You know,
that's raw emotion, man. Raw emotion, absolutely.
And then last little part of that topic that I want to kind of touch on is, and you did as well, but the judgment aspect. In a lot of sports, I think if we're all just being honest with each other, I know I experienced it in multiple sports. Every culture and race probably experiences it in different sports because of where we know that sport came from or where it's more popular or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Basketball, football, being a white boy playing at certain positions or any position in basketball, really, you're probably going to get talked smack to about your color. If you're in football and you try to play cornerback, like there's almost a 0% starting cornerback rate for white corners in the NFL, things like that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Or on the flip side of it, people talk about quarterbacks if they're black. It's getting better and better and better to where we don't judge as much on these things. But it is part of the culture where you will see it when you're coming up in the sport. You will see it somewhere.
Yeah.
Even it may be little, it may be big, depending on the situation. But in fighting, what judgment could you have? You just find out every single day on the mat. No one really judges in the same way because fighting is all across the world, no matter what culture.
And there's no doubt at the end. You know,
No
like
doubt.
in football, you have that field goal at the end, the last
And it's
3
a team.
seconds, and you know what I mean. Like, yeah, absolutely. You have a team. You have that field goal and like that game-winning catch. Like, and you could really. There's always like, oh well, if we hadn't had that penalty, if we hadn't had that false start, or in basketball that steal, like, oh man, if I had made that free throw. In fighting, nobody ever loses a fight. There are people that do it, but like authentic and people that are real, right, and that are being real with themselves, no one ever loses a fight and goes like, oh man, like, you know, I could beat this guy's butt, you know, like there's no doubt, and it's all displayed, and whoever does it looks like a fool, right? Because you're like, dude, we just watched you get whooped. Why are you in basketball and any other soccer like, oh well, if I had done this one, you know what I mean? And there's a team, there's people behind you. It's just you in that octagon. I think it's raw, you know, it's raw and real. It's the word, you know, spiritual.
Love it. I love every aspect of what that does, you know, spiritually, like we talked about.
It changes people.
So, question: if you could talk to Gabe at 18,
Ooh.
what would you say?
I would say, calm down. Stop trying to take on the world at once, and I not even at 18. I'd say that. I'd say this to me right now. It'll happen when it's meant to happen. Jesus said, or you know, the Bible says that it will happen when it's meant to happen. The Lord will make it happen when it's the right time. It doesn't matter how much you try to force it in the moment, how much you try to make it happen by your own will and strength. It just doesn't work that way. When it is meant to happen, and if it's meant for you, you won't miss it, you know. And I think I had to get through that. I have to get that through my head, because I oftentimes get so caught up in the moment and so hyper focused on the things that aren't going right. It's like, hey, like if it's meant for you, you will not miss it. You know, a lot of people, like, you know, I used to think like, well, if I sleep too much, then I'll miss the like, no, dude, like if it's meant for you, there's nothing that you can do that will make you miss it. You won't miss it. It'll happen. Yeah, I would just say, like, dude, Gabe, just take a breath, enjoy the journey. That's what it's all about. And nothing new. I know these things, but sometimes you need to, even when you know things, you need to rehear them, especially from yourself, right? So it all works out, it really does. And especially when you're living your life the right way, when you're seeking the Lord, when you're seeking a lifestyle that glorifies Him, He won't let you fail. Jesus said that you will have a successful life because, you know, for His glory. So and that's why you always see people in the top of the top glorify God, and like I give thanks to Jesus, because it is for His glory. You know, he won't let us stumble. We might you know, get scared sometimes, but it won't happen, you know, and you won't miss your opportunity. It'll happen if it's meant to happen.
Okay, so tell me, what's one thing that you would say people misunderstand about speed or running? What's something that people get wrong, maybe?
Yeah, so I would say that the biggest misconception about speed to me is that what you have is all you can get. speed is definitely something that you can develop as anything else, right? Anything else can be good. You can there's a limit to what your body will allow you to do, and that's what I've encountered, right? Like there was a wall that I hit in my career, where I was just not able to run faster, right? Like that, and that happens, but you're always able to get faster, and at some point it does drop off, right? Like maybe when you start, and I'll take the 100 for example, you can start running 12 seconds on the 100 when you're younger, and then you a year goes by and you'll have a drastic improvement. You go from 12 to 11.1, and then you have another drastic improvement. You go to 10.5, but then you get to a point, and this is where it tests your ability to keep your focus on the long-term mission, because the improvement get incredibly marginal at a certain point, especially when you're a professional and you do it's what you do every day. You need to be able to celebrate a 0.01 improvement in your time. And this is me speaking in sprinter terms. Like, a 0.01 improvement may mean that you've put hours and hours and hours of work just to get that 0.01 improvement in your time. And to people that aren't familiar with track or with running, they might look at that and say, well, 0.01, that's nothing. Like that, you can even with a blink of an eye. But the amount of work that it takes to get that 0.01 or 0.1 or 0.15, like that's all it takes to win a race. And when you get to a certain level, that's all the improvement you're going to get. And you need to be able to accept that and keep chasing that next 0.01. And, say you improve a 0.01 every week, all of a sudden at the end of the year, you've improved half a second, and half a second is a long time. So, and that's the thing. Once you get to a certain point, there's a lot of people in that bracket, right? Like, the difference between the number 1 in the world and the number 50 or 150 in the world, maybe, 0.4 of a second, right? Like it truly can be that small of a gap. And, that a lot of people miss being a professional in track by hundredths of a second. It's just how it is. Medals are lost within hundredths of a second. You can be a hair too late leaning, and all of a sudden 0.01 means the difference between gold in the Olympics or 4th place, and you didn't get anything. It's crazy. So it really teaches you to be okay with small improvements. And I think it's the same with any sport, right? That you get to a point where, like, Conor McGregor or LeBron James, they're not getting drastically better like how you are in the beginning. And I think that's the fun part of learning something new, is you get incredibly good, incredibly fast. But at a certain point, that growth plateaus, and you start getting into optimizing for that 1% improvement. And again, 1% might not seem incredible, but take Conor McGregor, or LeBron James, you improve 1% in something, and all of a sudden that 1 degree change of course over a year is an incredible gap. It can mean completely different career outlook on what you had. So once you get to a point where you're a high achiever, or you're at the top of your industry or sport, it's all about that 1% improvement, but not just one time, but how do you make that habit? How do you make that sustainable and repeatable over time? Because that's the thing, that it's like, you adjust a degree in a plane, right? And for a while it's not that big a difference, but it might mean the difference between you getting to Michigan or you getting to Alaska, right? Like that way, it all you start at the same place, but 1 degree shift can completely change the trajectory of your career. So yeah, small improvements, you got to be able to celebrate those and be okay with them,
What do you want people to say about Gabe Serrano when life comes to an end?
That he was a man of faith. He walked with the Lord. He was true to his faith. His actions matched his words. He cared about other people. He went out of his way to make the world a better place. he made an impact. He made a ripple, and I'm not seeking, you know, fame or wealth with what I'm doing, and of course those things are nice, but to me, I want to measure. I think the true measure of a life is the impact that you're leaving behind. Why do I believe that? I'm like, just look at the life of Jesus, a guy that lived 2,000 years ago, and is still being talked about today. And every grade, you know, it's all about the impact that they had. And that's when I want to leave a legacy of excellence to my future kids, so that they can know that anything is possible for them, right? Like I started this podcast by saying this, and I'll say it again. I'm not special. Like there's nothing. It's just a willingness to not quit and keep working, and the sky's the limit for you. I want to set an example that whatever your dream is, it doesn't matter if people tell you that it's not possible, that it's not reachable, it's not realistic. You go out there and do it. Everybody's going to act like they were supporting you from the beginning. But, you know, my point is that I want to set that example. If I can do it, then truly, and I really mean this, and I don't, you know, if I can do it, then anybody can do it, because there is nothing special about me. And I'm not, it's not me trying to not, you know, give credit to myself, or like I still had to put in the work, but my point is, if a guy from an island that's 35 miles wide and 110 miles long can come in and make an impact, then anybody that is born in the U.S. with the opportunities that the U.S. has, with the people around there, or seeks the people, you can do it too. Whatever your it is, you know, it can be done. It just goes down to, do you want it bad enough? It is the real question that truly matters. And it all goes down to that question. Do you want it bad enough?
Powerful stuff, man.
Yeah, I think the graveyard is the wealthiest place on the planet, because there are dreams, aspirations, and ambitions that never came true. And God can give you a vision, but if you don't do your part and relentlessly chase it, it's not going to happen. And it's not that, you know, you weren't meant for more. I believe everybody has a vision inside that if they, and I really believe, people tell you, oh, I don't know what I want, I don't want to do. I don't want to call them a liar, but I'm like, there's something already in you that you know you want. Maybe you're just scared to admit it, and scared to, because the moment you admit it, it becomes real. And every second that takes that you're not chasing that, you're beating yourself over it. So I truly believe that everybody has a vision. It's a question of, have you accepted whatever your calling is, whatever your it is? Have you accepted it?
I can see that. Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on a lot. I appreciate you as a friend. We've become really good friends since we've met, and I appreciate you as a training partner, as a brother in Christ, all kinds of ways, man. I feel like we've got a lifelong friendship ahead of us.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think a lot of people will take a lot of positive points from this, and we'll do it again sometime soon, bro.
Man. Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you for having me.